New PlayStation handheld update, Bungie and the marathon drama, and we'll be talking about Stellar Blade. All that and more in today's video. Please like the video, subscribe to never miss a gaming update, and share the video to help grow our community. We'll also be going over comment of the day. Make sure you leave a comment as you could be featured in the next video. Now let's talk about this standalone PlayStation handheld. On NeoGAF insider Heisenberg FX4 claims a full-blown PlayStation handheld is in the works. They do iterate that this would not fall within the PlayStation Portal pricing, which is currently $200 USD, and will launch somewhere around the PlayStation 6 launch. Last month, leaker Kepler L2 confirmed the existence of the PlayStation handheld. They claimed that it would not be as powerful as a PS5, but would be backwards compatible with the console at launch, which they confirmed would be part of the PS6 family. And when we say confirmed, I know some people might say, well, technically speaking, this isn't exactly confirmed information based on Sony talking about it, but Kepler L2 is known to leak a lot of things regarding AMD hardware, so it stands to reason that they would have to know something about this as well. So this is another situation where we're talking about a PlayStation handheld, and mind you, this could very well happen. This could also not happen depending on what Sony decides to do, right? Anything that's not confirmed for us publicly or public knowledge is always up in the air. It can change at any point, so we can always know that whether it seems as solid gets, that if PlayStation doesn't feel it makes sense for them to launch a handheld, then they probably just won't. But in the case of this, it seems as though PlayStation is pretty confident in launching a handheld, especially after the success of the PlayStation Portal, which was a remote play device and just recently became a cloud streaming device as well. So it seems that PlayStation is becoming more confident in coming back into the handheld space, especially when you look at things like the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, the MSI thing. I honestly don't even remember the name of it, but you get what I'm saying. Like, there are many avenues for them to go down for this kind of thing. So it seems like that has given them more confidence to come back. And I also think the PlayStation Portal success has done a lot for them to want to come back as well. So again, I feel like it makes sense for them to create something as long as it can play these games without compromising future games. I do wonder if it would be able to play like a AAA PS6 game, or is it a situation where it's going to pick and choose what type of titles it can play, kind of like how we have Steam Deck ready games, right? Like where they are able to boot up and optimize for the Steam Deck, right? Will this be a situation with the PlayStation handheld that they could be making? So in my opinion, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think handheld gaming is coming back in a very strong way, and especially when you look at how well these other systems are doing and how Nintendo Switch is just dominating in their space, it seems that it would only make sense for PlayStation to make something as well that already plays the catalog of games that they are working on, right? So it doesn't make sense for them to create a handheld and then create only games for that handheld because of the extra resources that it takes. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think that we're going to see a handheld launch with the PS6 and be a part of that, and I think it's going to play a lot of the games, if not all of the games to a degree, and they're going to somehow find a way for that to work. Whether that be some games will do cloud streaming if it's too much, or if it'll be a situation where they'll make sure all the games work natively on the hardware. But regardless, I'm down. I'm excited. I hope to see a handheld, and I definitely would be on board if that did come through. Let me know if you guys would be interested in a dedicated PlayStation handheld that is working natively off the hardware on the board. Next, we are talking about the Bungie marathon drama. There was some plagiarism that happened here, and it is absolute madness. There's a lot to go over here, so bear with me as we're going to cover this in a very brief format and then talk about it as well. So, Scottish artist Fern Anti-Real Hook accused Bungie of taking assets from her previous work and using it in the alpha for Marathon. Bungie later acknowledged that Hook's claims were accurate and claimed that a former staff member was responsible for taking her art. On Friday, the developer kicked off its weekly marathon livestream in somber fashion, first announcing that it would not have any gameplay due to the ongoing investigation into the lifted artwork. Joseph Cross, Marathon's art director, then claimed Bungie was conducting a thorough review process to remove any art from the game that was inappropriately sourced and ensure that the situation doesn't happen again in the future. Cross claimed that Bungie had reached out to Fern Hook to apologize and make sure they do right by her, though no specific details were shared on how it plans to do so. And quotes, "It came to our attention that an artist who worked on Marathon in the early stages of pre-production took a number of graphic elements from a graphic designer without permission or acknowledgement and then placed them on a decal sheet that was then checked in on 2020. The decal sheet included icon and text elements which ended up in our alpha build. There's absolutely no excuse for this oversight, and we are working on and are 100% committed to a review process to ensure that instances like this don't happen again at Bungie." Cross claimed that over the last 24 hours, he had reached out to Fern Hook and was auditing all work done by the former Bungie artist responsible, and that it would remove anything deemed questionably or inappropriately sourced. Holy moly. This is deep. Now, I do want to say one other statement that they made, and this was as far as their apology segment goes, right? They said a lot of other stuff, but just going down to the apology made here by Bungie's team, they said, "So to that extent, I want to send my personal apology to Anti-Real, whose work was used in this case. I know how unfair this feels, and we're doing everything we can to make this right. Her work is fantastic, and we clearly share a mutual appreciation for a specific genre of graphic design, and I'm excited to have folded that into our style in general." So the big drama here is like, okay, you are Bungie. You are Bungie. Why are you guys stealing from an independent artist? It's like, it's just disgusting to do that kind of thing when you could just, I don't know, hire them or, contract them or just pay them the small amount of money that it really would have taken for you to do this. As far as this being something that the art director was unaware of, I think it's hard to say that that's exactly the case, man. Like, it seems like this may not be the full truth of it, because a lot of their team or multiple team members were actually following Anti-Real over on X. So it's really weird that they follow this person and then they also plagiarize their artwork. It just doesn't make any sense for that to just be such a huge coincidence, right? So I think there is definitely more at play here, and I do think there is some more, I wouldn't call it malicious intent, but definitely some intent for taking some work without having to credit the artist, or taking something that just truly didn't belong to them. And now it's a situation where Bungie looks bad, Marathon looks bad, and it's already in a tough situation to begin with. Bungie's in a tough situation to begin with. This does not help Marathon or Bungie at all. And this kind of goes into how people responded to them during their live stream. It was just constant comments about their plagiarism, right? So there is no escaping this, right? The internet does not forget. I'll tell you that much. They really don't forget. When you do something that is scummy, they will be there to remind you you did that scummy thing. So Marathon, at least as far as online goes, it's going to be a constant reminder to them, hey, you guys did this thing. And on top of that, just it not being as beloved as their other IP like Destiny and previous IP like Halo, it's hard to walk this one back. And as far as it goes with Anti-Real, I think that you guys really costed yourself way more than you would have if you just paid the person. It's a situation where they could really sue you and take you for a lot more than it would have cost you. And as far as them making it right, until we know what it is they're doing to making things right, it's difficult to have confidence in that at the very least. But I do hope that they do something to make this person whole, right? Like, that's a big deal, especially in the art scene and the writing scene. To plagiarize is such a, like, you can't do that. You don't walk away from that. That's a very big deal. And whoever did it, whether it be the team being fully aware, whether it be one person who just happened to do this thing, yeah, you're cooked. Your career is cooked. I don't know that you're going to come back from this. This is just irreparable damage to Marathon, to Bungie, and harmful to the person who created the artwork in the first place. So that's my 2 cents on it. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you think of this Marathon Bungie drama? Let me know down below. Now, next, we are talking about Stellar Blade. Guys, Stellar Blade got a PC announcement. Obviously, it was preemptive, but then they officially announced it. And then there was some drama around it with it being locked out to like 129 countries. And then there was the de novo thing, which was supposedly an issue with allowing your system to run it at its best. It kind of impacted performance. At least that was what they were saying. Well, Stellar Blade on X has responded. They say, we are closely discussing the region lock issue with the publisher and are doing our best to resolve most of it as soon as possible. Of course, that's what you want to do. You cannot have region lock. You cannot keep 129 countries out of being able to play this game. Moving on, they say, as shown in the test chart below, the DRM has been hard-tuned to maintain the same average frame rate with even higher minimum frames in some cases. Mods are fully supported without any restrictions. So they've pretty much axed that entire thing. Mods are going to work. The frame rate is not impacted by this DRM thing, and that's what they're saying. And they're showing the chart. They're showing us that it's legit. So I'm inclined to believe, but we will definitely see when we get our hands on it. They go on to say PSN connecting entirely optional and never required. So straight off the bat, this is not an issue. PSN will not be required, and they're saying it again. The PSN is entirely optional, and this is an initiative that Sony was making, pretty much rewarding those who did get a PSN account, signed up, or whatever, to get a few bonuses, I think, depending on the game. But in this case, it's not required, and you can pretty much just play it without the PSN account. So that should solve another issue. And lastly, they say both the PC and PS5 versions offer the same content. We will make sure that the early buyers are never at a disadvantage through future updates. And that obviously makes the most sense, right? Like, you cannot give these PC players, hey, here's a bunch of free stuff, and then the people who bought the game originally when it dropped are just kind of left in the dust, right? Like, that's just something that you cannot do to your adopters of your game, right? So nice to see Stellar Blade holding up that end of their deal, making sure that we get the equal amount of things, right? It would make no sense for them to give PC players more. It's also nice to see them address the community straight on, just saying, hey, we are making sure that everything is to the best of our ability, right? So whether it be with mods, whether it be with best performance, even though they are including the DRM thing, where I understand that, publishers want to do that to mitigate, piracy, but in a lot of cases, piracy still happens. So it's one of these things where they will do what they can, but as long as it's not impacting performance, if it's not impacting mods, I don't personally see an issue with the DRM for PC games. As far as this entire region lock thing goes and all that, yeah, they need to clear that up as well. I think region lock is a thing of a bygone era, right? We don't see region lock as often as we used to, and I think it should be something that we leave in the past, as well as I think they should never force people to have PSN accounts if they want to maximize their audience on PC, because every region does not have access to PSN. And in those cases, if you can't even make a PSN account, then yeah, how are you supposed to buy your game? How are you supposed to play that game? And that hurts the developer, that hurts the publisher, and yeah, it definitely hurts PlayStation as well, depending on the game that they're putting on the PC. But that's where I sit with this. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Are you buying Stellar Blade on PC? How are you feeling about what they're saying and their interactions with the community? Let me know down below. Now, lastly, we're going to be talking about comment of the day. Man, we had two spicy videos. We had one regarding PlayStation prices going up, possibly. We talked about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, but then we had a sudden video having to pop off in regards to Jade Raymond and Haven Studio. So this comment is taken from that video, and the comment in question comes from @mymanjfktv, who says, although a few first-party games and third-party exclusives have dropped since 2020, I feel like PlayStation wasted an entire generation on short-sighted ambitions fueled by greed and a lack of innovation. And look, a lot of you might see this comment, read this comment, and think, holy moly, this is an extreme statement. PlayStation 5, sure, we've had some hiccups here, but we had some fantastic games. Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Returnal, Death Stranding 2 is coming out, Ghost of Yotei is coming out. Like, we have a lot of great games here, right? But I do agree and resonate with one thing being said here, is that there were a lot of choices made, right, in order to make more money. And those choices were what I believe to be led by Mr. Jim Ryan, right? Where he went out and he purchased these studios, one of them being Bungie, for a lot of money, and they just didn't pan out. And we're seeing a lot of these close down, and we saw Bungie possibly being next on the block if Marathon didn't work out. And as we talked about just earlier in this video, it's not looking good. Haven Studio on top of that, also in a tough place where it's not looking good. The optics are horrible on this, and it's assumed, not true yet, it's assumed, speculated that Haven Studio could be in a lot of trouble. And if this game does not pop off the way they need it, it very well could shut down Haven Studio and get canceled. The game could get canceled as well. So I think this comment is pretty accurate. I think as far as that goes, as far as the generation being impacted by acquisitions that didn't pan out and projects and ambitions on all these live service projects that just didn't work out. And unfortunately, there are quite a few of them. It's not like a few projects. It's not a few studios. It's quite a few, which makes people feel this way, and it's totally understandable. Now, mind you, we did get good games. We had fantastic games, but it's hard to say there were no letdowns or there wasn't many letdowns in this generation as far as, you know, first party games go. As far as the last showcase we got, man, that was a while ago. Horrible lineup of announcements as far as first party announcements go, and with a big focus on a game that was canceled and taken off shelves within 2 weeks. So it's tough, man. Like it's a really tricky situation when we look at the PlayStation 5 generation, where and on one hand we have great games that were cross-gen as well, but on the other hand we had a lot of cancellations, a lot of studio closures, and again, just the reality of the situation. But thank you for that comment. Let me know what you guys are thinking about that as far as the PS5 generation goes. How are you feeling about the PS5 generation? But that is all I have for you guys in today's video. Please like the video, subscribe. We're on our way to 20K. Please help us get there before the end of the year, and share the video to help grow our community. I thank you all for watching. Take care.